Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Commander's Core Studio. Welcome to the show. So today's episode comes to you courtesy of one of my incredible patrons, Notker, a general tier patron. Thank you again for supporting this channel, Notker. And the personalized deck tech, well, Notker chose, in my opinion, an underrated commander, a commander that I think can really shine in players, well, might not give it as much credit as it should get, and that is Jaxis, the Troublemaker. An incredibly spicy and effective commander that can be very aggressive, very impactful. A 2/3 human warrior for 3 and a red. Pay a red, tap, discard a card. Create a token that's a copy of another target creature you control. It gains haste, and when this creature dies, draw a card. Sacrifice at the beginning of the next end step, activate as a sorcery, and it's got a blitz cost of 1 and a red. Yeah, Jaxis can pack a punch. My goodness, this commander can hit hard because you're basically just paying a single red mana to, well, first up, rummage, essentially. I mean, a delayed rummage, I should say. You discard that card. Eventually, you'll draw it again when that creature dies, because you're getting a token copy of another creature again for just a single red mana. Pretty crazy, pretty incredible, and of course you can really take advantage of, well, not just ETBs, but death triggers as well. LTBs, leave the battlefield triggers, not just from the creature itself, but other creatures as well. A lot of really cool effects can happen with this kind of a commander, and you can be so aggressive, you can swing at players very quickly and take them out in absolutely no time with Jaxis, the Troublemaker. So again, in my opinion, very effective, underrated commander. Now, of course, with this deck tech, like my other deck techs, this can be a very budget-friendly deck tech, with the total cost on Moxfield being $21.82, so incredibly budget-friendly. Now, keep in mind, that does not include the cost of basic lands, but again, hey, you got some mountains lying around, utilize those, or maybe ask some friends or LGS, or just buy them in bulk. Basic lands are pretty cheap. Also, on top of that, this estimated cost does not include the cost of shipping, which might vary depending upon where you live. But again, still $21 for the cards in this deck. Very, very, very budget friendly. Now with that, let's jump into the tactics. And of course, first up in our first tactic, there's Wayfarer's Bauble. Pay 2, tap, sacrifice, go get that basic land into play, tapped. Fantastic land ramp for any color out there. Next up, Everflowing Chalice, a great flexible mana rock. Multi-kicker 2, taps for half the amount of mana that we put into this essentially. So yeah, early on, turn 2, sure, get that down to start ramping right away. Or later in the game, if you got some mana to dump into it, dump that mana into it, it can tap for a ton. Next up though, Arcane Signet. Speaking of 2 mana rocks, we got a lot of great ones out there. Arcane Signet, taps for red, enters the battlefield tap, fantastic. Then we got Felwar Stone. Does that most of the time, depending on what our lands our opponents have. So yeah, even if it doesn't, that's okay with us. Then we've got Fire Diamond, enters the battlefield tap, taps for a red, so slightly slower, but still very effective, very low to the ground. Then we've got Liquid Metal Torque. We are in a monocolor deck. Tapping for a red, yeah, that's really nice. Tapping for a colors, that's basically just as good. Not quite just as good, but pretty close. You can also tap a target online permanent becomes an artifact until end of turn. Basically, hey, a great way to say, you know what? I've got a remove artifact spell in my hand. Let's get rid of that thing. There you go. Next up, Mind Stone. This one can tap for a color, or can pay 1 and tap and sacrifice to draw a card, so replacing it can be fantastic. We, of course, also have another way to ramp when it comes to lands with Burnished Heart. This one is incredible as commander because it says, hey, pay 3, sacrifice it, go get 2 basics into play, tapped. So kind of like Explosive Vegetation. Obviously, in total, this will cost 6 for you to do. That being said, with this commander, hey, maybe keep it around just a little bit. You can pay that red, you can tap your commander, make a token copy of this, pay that 3, sacrifice it, draw a card, and go get 2 basics. This is a repeatable ramp effect for you, essentially, a repeatable rummage effect for you. With this commander, this can be absolutely huge. Speaking of huge, Patron of the Arts. ETB, make a treasure. Die, make a treasure. Yeah, you make a token copy of this, you're making 2 treasures every single time. On top of that, rummaging that you're getting as well. Yeah, maybe keep this one around as well. So you're kind of like just turning like your mana into, well, more temporary mana that you can utilize later. You can build up a massive treasure collection for you to utilize. Then we've got Skyclave Relic, speaking of tokens as well. Kicker 3, it's indestructible, taps for 1. So this isn't the most efficient at 3 mana. That being said, hey, if you kick it, you get 2 copies of it, then into battlefield tapped. So indestructible mana rocks, 6 mana for basically 3 mana that you can just repeatedly use. Fantastic. Then there's Warden Power Stone. Also 3 mana, very efficient, very effective. Enters the battlefield tap, taps for 2. And then Hedron Archive. That does not enter the battlefield tap, so it's going to cost us 1 more. Can tap for that 2 as well. We're going to pay 2 taps, sacrifice, draw those cards. And then finally, the sad robot, of course, some simulacrum. Get value on ETB, get value on LTB. ETB, go get that basic into play, tap fantastic. LTB, draw a card. So basically with this commander, use the activation, discard that one card, red tap. Hey, let's get a token copy. Let's make that land ramp happen, and then let's just draw another card on top of the one that we already draw from our commander's effect too. So this is fantastic. But of course, we've got other death triggers we can really take advantage of in the tactic number 2 here in Gone. Let's talk about Mirror Retriever, a 1/1 mirror that costs 2. When it dies, return another target artifact card from graveyard to your hand. We've got a lot of artifacts in this deck, a lot of ones that we're gonna want to actually, get into play. Maybe they get dealt with, that's okay, and hey, let's get them back. This is a repeatable way to get artifacts back out of our graveyard in combination with our commander. Next up, value, Filigree Familiar, 2/2 Fox for 3. ETBs gain some, a nice little, life pad right there, which is 2 life every single time. Dies, draw a card. So again, with our commander, just utilize this as a draw engine that can also gain us some life too. Speaking of an engine, we've got Scuttling Doom Engine, a 6/6 construct for 6. It can't be blocked by creatures powered 2 or less. So essentially, hey, a great just force actually out there that can just keep getting through on opponents that maybe don't have any big creatures, and you can just keep getting copies of it to be aggressive. On top of that, when it dies, it deals 6 damage to target opponent or planeswalker, so that can be a lot of damage, a lot of repeatable damage. Again, basically, hey, 1 red mana, tap, double lightning bolt, have fun with that. Next up, Phyrexian Triniform, 9 mana, but well worth it. 9/9 Phyrexian Golem. When it dies, you create 3 3/3s, and hey, you can encore out of your graveyard for even more value. But again, if you got this in play, hey, just keep making token copies of it. Make an army of these 3/3s, take your opponents out in no time. Speaking of that, hey, Ancient Stone Idol, finally budget friendly. 10 mana, 12/12 golem with flash. It's gonna cost 1 cast for each attacking creature. That can be your creatures. Again, you're gonna be aggressive with this kind of a deck, or it can be your opponent's creatures. So you can cast this for basically, a lot less, or even free. Trample, hey, and also on top of that, when it dies, you get a 6/12 with Trample. Yeah, hey, make a token copy of it. It's going to die. Cool. Do that. Yeah, again, be very aggressive and attack a lot with this, and of course, get a lot of value out of it. Make that token army. But now it's time for us to move on to tactic number 3, Good and Gone, because, well, we've got other things that care about, well, our death triggers as well, like an Axe Harden in the Forge, Star 3 Demigod. It's got a power equal devotion red, so that can be quite big. On top of that, whenever it or another non-token creature control dies, you get a 1/1, but if it's got power 4 or greater, you get 2 1/1s. They can't block, but again, that's great because you can have them as well. Great attackers, be very aggressive with them. Again, we've got a lot of creatures that care about dying. When they die, now you get extra benefits as well. Speaking of that, Dross Scorpion. This one can be absolutely huge. 3/1. Whenever it or another artifact is put in a graveyard from the play, you may untap target artifacts. So if your artifact creatures start dying, you can untap your artifacts, including, of course, your mana rocks. We've got some mana rocks that can tap for obviously a lot of mana, which can be fantastic. So essentially, hey, tap your mana rock, utilize your commander, get a token copy of an artifact creature. Swing with it, do whatever you need to do with it. Get that value, get that ETB, death trigger, whatever it is, it's gonna die. You get to untap whatever you tapped or any other artifact that you want. This can be absolutely huge for you throughout the game. Speaking of which, Outpost Siege. This is flexible depending on what you need. Cons, at the beginning of your upkeep, exile top card of your library until end of turn, you play that card. Dragons, whenever a creature control leaves the battlefield, it's gonna do 1 damage to any target. So when this ETBs, pick one or the other, depending on what you need. Some great impulse draw, that's nice. Or, hey, we're gonna have lots of creatures coming and going. When they leave, let's ping down targets. You can take out tiny creatures, take out planeswalkers, take out players' faces over time. This can be fantastic. And, well, a big one, a big effect that has, well, everyone's number. Stalking Vengeance. My goodness. 5/5 Hasty Avatar. Whenever another creature controlled dies, it deals damage equal to its power to target player or planeswalker. You're gonna have that happening a lot. Again, your commander is gonna make token copies of creatures. You have other effects to make even more creatures. Get some creatures out there, have them die, ping opponents in the face, or take out their planeswalkers too. A fantastic card for this kind of a deck. But next up, let's move on to tactic number 4, and yeah, incoming. Here we go. So some great ETBs. First up, Fanatic of Mogus. If your opponents don't deal with this permanently, they're going to be in big trouble because, yeah, a single mana and discarding a card to make a copy of this can be so deadly. ETBs. Deals damage to each opponent equal to your devotion red. That, in a mono red deck like this one, can very easily be 10 plus damage per opponent. So with each activation of your commander, you're taking out a giant chunk of their life. Yeah, it's not going to take long for them to get taken out. This is a crazy good card for you to use and abuse with this kind of a deck. Moving on, speaking of which, my goodness, Mirror Battlesphere. Hey, do you like creature tokens? You like making a lot of them? You make do it for pretty cheap? Yeah, there you go. You like all those things? Great. Mirror Battlesphere, ETB, 4/1/1 Mirror. Gross. For just 1 mana, again with your commander. A great activation to really, really use and abuse. And of course, on top of that, hey, whenever it attacks, you can tap some mirror, and then you're basically going to give this mirror plus X+0, and it deals that much damage to the defending player. Yes, please. Again, every single time you're activating your commander, you're making more and more mirror, making this giant army that you can be like, hey, cool, now I'm just going to basically just fireball you in the face with my mirror while swinging with this very aggressive creature. Good luck to them, and especially good luck when you can really take advantage of Terror of Mount Velis. Hey, a 5/5 dragon with flying and double strike, already a good way to be aggressive with that. Again, 10 damage in the air. On top of that, when it ETBs, all creatures you control gain double strike until end of turn. Gross. And again, yeah, with your commander, you're like, hey, okay, I've got this army. This is great. Okay, let's go to combat after I activate my commander and get double strike to my team for just a single mana. Fantastic. Plus the rummaging. What's not to love? Moving on, though, how do we keep this fun continuing? Well, let's move on to attack number 5. Keep it coming because, hey, you know what? We've got plenty of ways to dig down into our deck. Now, a simple one is Cathartic Union, okay? We discard 2 cards to draw 3 for 2 mana. That's fantastic. But you know what? We've got some creatures that can help us out, too, like, Humble Defector. Hey, a 2/1 Human Rogue that just costs 2 mana. Tap, draw 2 cards. We give it to an opponent. Activate during your turn. What's going to happen is, though, maybe we'll just keep the actual one around, and then we'll pay a single red mana, make a token copy of it, and then use that one. Here, opponent, I am gifting you this token copy of Humble Defector. Oh no, it's gone! Sorry. Next up, Idol of Oblivion. It taps and we draw a card. Activate only create a token this turn. We're going to be making a lot of tokens. This is a very low to the ground, very easily, very repeatable way to draw a ton of cards. And we can also make a 10/10 if we need to. That can be a great way to be aggressive with it as well. Next up, Throw a Possibility. Again, a great low to the ground. Hey, discard 1, draw 2. What's not to love about that? Instant speed as well. Tormenting Voice, only difference that sorcery speed. Still very, very good. Then we've got Magus the Wheel. Back to a creature that is fantastic with this kind of a commander. Pay 1 to red, tap, sacrifice it. Everyone wheels, discards their hand, draws 7. This is a repeatable, great way to say, you know what? I don't like this hand. Let's get a new one. I don't like this. Let's get a new one. Normally, you wouldn't be able to repeat this, but again, with this commander, you make a token copy of it, utilize it right away to just draw a ton of cards. Next up, Emerald Captain. When it comes to drawing cards, Monarch can help with that as well. Enters the battlefield, you become the Monarch. Yeah, this is an ETB we can very easily use and abuse again with our commander by making a token copy of this because, hey, oh, you took Monarch from me. I could just swing at you, and we've got plenty of ways to swing and get through with them, right? But also, hey, I could just, if I can't get through, just make a token copy. You've got the Monarch now. On top of that, whenever an opponent attacks you while you're the Monarch, it deals damage to that player equal to the number of cards in their hand, which again can be a ton with all these draw effects that we have. Maybe, yeah, you Magus the Wheel and they say, oh, okay, now you got 7. If you attack me and I'm the Monarch, you're taking 7. Sorry about that. Next up, Treasure Keeper. Another way to get a lot of value out of something when it dies. When it dies, real cards to the top of your library until you reveal not only a card mana value 3 or less. Cast the card with paying its mana cost. Probably real cards on the bottom of your library in random order. Basically, again, a way to just spin the wheel and say, hey, maybe I'll hit something great. Awesome. Just get a lot of value out of getting this into play, a token copy of it, and sacrificing it. Then there's Unexpected Windfall. Yet another great spell that can help us out. Basically, discard 1 card, draw 2, make 2 treasures. A great way to temporarily ramp us again for some of our big, heavy hitters. Speaking of a heavy hitter, Hoarding Dragon. Only a 4/4 flyer, but hey, you know what? When it ETBs, go get any artifact out of your deck, exile it, and when this dies, you get that artifact in your hand. So, yeah, make a token copy of this, rummage, and also swing with it. Sure, why not? And then sacrifice it. And hey, you know what? You got that artifact that you wanted. You get that perfect card for the situation that you're in. Get that exact artifact that you need. Maybe that's Combustible Gearhawk, a great card, a 6/6 construct with first strike for 6 mana in total. ETBs, an opponent can have you draw 3 cards. It's risky if they don't, though, because if they don't, you're going to mill 3 cards, and Combustible Gearhawk's going to deal damage to that player equal to the total mana value of those cards. Again, you've got some pretty high value cards in this stack. They could end up taking a lot of, damage from this, and if they're at low life, they're probably never going to not say, yeah, you can't draw those cards. So yeah, you can draw a ton of cards with this repeatedly with your commander. Speaking of which, Ruin Grinder, another way to say, you know what, hey, I don't like what's going on here with my hand. Maybe you all don't as well, so let's wheel if you want. A 7/4 Menace, so again, very aggressive way to say, let's just swing with this and make copies of it and swing with that too. But on top of that, when it dies, each player may discard their hand, draw 7. So basically, wheel if you want to. Mountain Cycling for 2, so a great way to replace our hand when need be. And then Null Spine Dragon. This can draw us an absurd amount of cards, 7/5 flyer. So again, very aggressive ways to get through and swing at opponents. Nice. ETBs. discard your hand, draw cards equal to damage all target opponent this turn. You've got plenty of ways to deal a lot of damage. Again, we have ways to be very aggressive with this deck. Let's, you know, make extra copies of this and just draw a ton of cards thanks to this. And then finally, Sandstone Oracle. You know what? If you're jealous of an opponent, maybe a blue player over there who's just drawing an absurd amount of cards, maybe they have no maximum hand size, they've got 20 cards in their hand. Let's get up to that amount. 4/4 Flying Sphinx enters the battlefield to his opponent. If that player has more cards than you, draw cards equal to the difference. Yes, a great one to use and abuse to get extra copies of and say, you know what? I would love to draw as many cards as you have. Thank you. Oh, is it 0 and I'm at 20? Right. Even if you go up to 7, that's a crazy good effect. Again, that you can just use and abuse for just a single mana. But of course, we're not done with the value just yet. Let's go on to tactic number 6, Value Town, with some different ways to accumulate some value. Bag of Holding is a great one. This one says, whenever you discard a card, exile a card from your graveyard. You can pay 2 to tap to loot, essentially. But more importantly, what's going to happen is we're going to pay 4 to tap to sacrifice this and get all those exiled cards back into our hand. So it's kind of like a way to, well, hold all the cards that we are discarding, not just from, Tormenting Voice, those kind of, looting type effects that we already have, rummaging type effects, I should say, but also the rummaging effect, most importantly, with our commander, because now instead of it just being like card selection, right, this is now just straight up card advantage thanks to our commander. Speaking of which, Containment Construct, a great card in this deck as well. Where you discard a card, you may exile a card from your graveyard. If you do, you may play a card this turn. So essentially, the opposite of Bag of Holding, where it's like, no, let's just use it right away, essentially. We're like, hey, you know what? Hey, this card is like, oh, we already have the opportunity to play it. But instead of being like, well, I wouldn't want to discard a card that I can play this turn, that I want to play this turn, now you're like, no, I'm going to discard that card that I want to play this turn, and then still use it. So Containment Construct kind of takes away that entire downside to rummaging. It basically says, you're not even discarding the card, you're just using it, you're just casting it. So, of course, there are times when, oh no, we exile a card, that's fine. But yeah, this also just kind of gives us the opportunity to basically double up on the effectiveness of our commander's ability. Next up, Wildfire Devils. When it enters the battlefield at the beginning of your upkeep, choose a player at random. That player exiles an instant resource card from their graveyard. Copy that card, play the copy without paying its mana cost. This one, again, can be fantastic throughout the game, just giving us value, but also ETB, just basically be able to cast a free spell. Yeah, what's not to love about that? And when it comes to value, true value, Mirage Phalanx. My goodness, this card is so good. Soul Bond, as long as it's paired with another creature each of those creatures has, at the beginning of combat on your turn, you get a token. Let's copy that creature. It has haste, loses Soul Bond, exile in combat. So another way to copy creatures. Again, we got so many ways to get value out of creatures. Great amount of ETBs we can use and abuse. We've got ways to actually sacrifice those creatures. We can actually take advantage of that as well. Yeah, a great card for this kind of attack. But now it's time for us to move on to tactic number 7 with That's Mine, because, well, we've got some ways to make things ours. There we've got Coercive Recruiter, the first one, a 4/3 Orc Pirate that says whenever it or another pirate enters the battlefield under your control, gain control of target creature until end of turn, untap the creature until end of turn, it gains haste, becomes a pirate of other types. This one we can utilize in multiple ways. This can be a crazy good card for us because, well, hey, we can activate it, of course, steal some creatures that we don't control and say, hey, we get to use them, we get to swing with them, awesome, cool, we can do that. On top of that, in combination with our commander, we can, of course, make another copy of it. And yeah, even untap our commander itself with that trigger. Again, being able to say, you know what, let's do it again, and again, and again, stealing your opponent's creatures while you're doing this as well. Huge. Next up, Zealous Conscripts. This one takes in a different way. Again, we can utilize this to untap our commander as well to make an army of this if we really want to. On top of that, it says when it enters battlefield, gain control of target permanent on turn, untap the permanent, gains haste on turn. Any permanent, doesn't have to be a creature like, our, pirate was. This one can be any creature, essentially. Any creature, any permanent, any fantastic thing in play. Now it is ours. Thank you. Until end of turn still, but thank you. Then we've got Conquering Manscore. The most limited out of these, though, but still very good. 5/5 flyer, so again, you can be aggressive with this. Enters the battlefield, gain control of target creature, and opponent controls until end of turn, untap the creature, gains haste. So this one, we can't, unfortunately, untap our commander to use and abuse that. That being said, still very effective, very impactful way to say, hey, that best creature out there, give me that. I'm going to swing with it. Maybe just back at the player that you stole it from. Now, as good as all these cards are, there is one, in my opinion, that stands above the rest, and that is the Golden Pig of this deck, which, of course, is the number 1 card out of 99. And the Golden Pig for this deck is Jandor's Saddlebags, a very simple but very effective card for this deck. An artifact for 2 that has pay 3, tap, untap target creature. So basically, hey, utilize some mana with this to say, you know what, Commander, let's do that again. So like basically 5 mana in total, discard 2 cards, make 2 copies, and rummage. Yeah, that can be fantastic. We can use and abuse, you know, 1 creature, multiple creatures. It's a great way just early on to say, let's get extra value out of our creatures. Let's get extra value out of those ETBs, those LTBs, that rummaging effect. A fantastic card for this kind of a deck. But now we're going to move on to tactic number 9, get out of here, because, well, we've got ways to make things get out of here. Like, you know, by force, a great way to destroy a lot of artifacts, X mana destroy X artifacts. Then we've got Chaos War, basically deal with anything at a price, potentially. Shuffle a permanent back into his library, and then they just get a random thing off the top, potentially, if it's a permanent. Good for them. Then there's Plundering Barbarian, a way that we can use and abuse this with our commander. Fantastic. ETB, store an artifact. Lots of artifacts in play. Take those out, even your opponent's mana rocks, maybe. Or, hey, get a treasure token. If you want to make a treasure, cool, go for that instead. Then there's Evanral's Disc, a great one to say, you know what? Panic button, let's get rid of everything, mostly everything. ETB is tapped. Destroy all artifacts, enchantments, and creatures by just paying a single mana and tapping it. Yeah, a great way to say, let's reset things a bit. Then there's Rose Room Treasurer. This one says, whenever another creature enters the battlefield under control, create a token if it's the first, second time its ability to resolve this turn. Otherwise, pay X. When you do, it deals X damage to any target. A great way to make a lot of treasures with this, and a great way to say, let's take some things out, or maybe an opponent's face. Then there's Vengeful Ancestor. A great way to start goading creatures a lot. ETBs or attacks go target creatures. So again, with the token copy we're going to make of this, we get to goad 2 creatures, and on top of that, whenever a goaded creature attacks, it deals 1 damage to its controller. That can be fantastic. Then there's Demanding Dragon, another great ETB we can really use and abuse. When it enters the battlefield, it deals 5 damage to target opponent unless that player sacrifices a creature. That's a lot of damage, so hey, you might want to sacrifice that creature. And when you're out of it, let's just start dealing damage. Then we've got Furbolg Flutist. When it enters the battlefield, gain control of target creature you don't control until end of turn. Untap that creature, gains haste and mirror until end of turn. So hey, again, that best creature you've got over there, it's mine now. Let's swing with it and maybe even send that creature into a dangerous circumstance, because why not? Then there's Geode Rager. Hey, 4/3 elemental with first strike. Land enters battlefield controlled. Grow to each creature target player controls. This can be fantastic, especially when we make a second copy of it with our commander. Play a land. Double goad, essentially goad 2 players things. And of course, if you've got like some way to get another land into play, like a Wayfarer's Bauble, cool, do it even more. Get everything goaded. Have fun with that. Next up, Inferno Titan, a great way to spread out a lot of damage. 3 damage divided as you choose on ETB and on attack. So again, basically 6 damage worth essentially when you are using your commander's effect to make a token copy that can swing right away. There's Markov Enforcer. This one can do a lot of work for you. A 6/6 for 6. Whenever it or other vampire enters battlefield control, it fights up to 1 target creature opponent controls. So essentially, hey, yeah, when this is in play, you make a token copy. Fight twice. Take 2 things out. You can take most things out that have, you know, toughness 5 or less, essentially. And also on top of that, hey, whenever a creature dealt damage by it this turn dies, you get a blood token. Lovely. Making a lot of blood tokens, even more rummaging for you. Then there's Warstorm Surge. Take advantage of all these creatures having come into play, whether just normally or with, you know, the copy effect from your commander. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under control, deals damage equal to its power to any target. Again, take out creatures, take out planeswalkers, or yeah, take out players' faces, or just take out pretty much anything with Meteor Golem. Enters the battlefield to store target non-land permanent opponent controls. Most of the pesky permanents you want to deal with are non-land, so yeah, a great one to use and abuse with your commander. A great effect for this deck. And yeah, take out a lot of creatures with Molten Primordial. ETBs for each opponent, gain control up to 1 target creature the player controls until end of turn. Untap those creatures, gain haste until end of turn. Kind of like a mini insurrection in a way. And yeah, very easily use and abuse with your commander, where you say, yeah, 1 mana, let's gain control of 3 creatures. What's not to love about that? And then finally, Spawn of Thraxes. This is player removal in a way. I mean, you can take out creatures with it too, but at a certain point, yeah, it's going to be a lot of damage. 5/5 Flying Dragon ETBs deals damage to target creature or player equal to the number of mountains you control. The longer the game goes, we've got a ton of mountains, the more damage that is, and we can just make token copies of this and say, yeah, let's take you out quite quickly, opponents, or your biggest creatures. Whatever we need to take out, you can take out. Finally, though, let's quickly go through tactic number 10, Great Land, because I want to highlight a great land for this deck, which is Song Mad Treachery. It's a very simple land, one that, you know, you can play as an MDFC on the backside, and a land that enters the battlefield taps for a red. Cool, great, nice. If you need a land, go for it. If not, a very simple sorcery for 5 mana, 3 red, gain control of target creature till end of turn, untap that creature, gains haste till end of turn. Again, sure, if you need to gain control of opponent's creature, great removal in a way to send it into a bad situation or hit an opponent for a lot of damage. Or hey, you know what? Let's untap our commander if we really need to. If you need to utilize this, say, you know what? It is an expensive way to untap your commander for 5 mana, but that might be worth it again if you've got a massive ETB or LTB on a creature. You're like, okay, I'll spend 1 mana with my commander to do that. Then I'll cast this, do that again for another mana. Being able to utilize, again, massive effects like we've talked about, ES card can do a lot of work for you. But yeah, overall, Jaxis, I think, is a very exciting and very underrated commander. And if you're interested in this commander, make sure you check out that deck list link in the description below. A very budget-friendly, fantastic deck. Make sure you check it out. And of course, as always, well, thanks again, and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.